Hey, welcome back, friends. This is Kumar from Saathwic Infotech. We are in our AWS learning series, day 14. Okay, in today's series session, we are going to look about a very important and interesting topic, which will be like really useful for any DevOps engineer or DevSecOps engineer or any platform engineers who is really working on AWS. Okay, so what is this topic? Is that okay? Basically, being a DevOps engineer, or DevSecOps, or platform engineer, you need to monitor the resource creations in your AWS. Okay, what is a resource is getting created, whether it's as per the standard, and there are instances where you need to monitor the existing instances to understand whether it's a compliant or non-compliant. So there are multiple activities we will do. Okay, so I am going to explain you what are the services involved in doing that activity. Okay, and also I am going to guide you with the use case how to monitor if any new AWS resources are getting created. Okay, let's get into the practicals, right? Okay, so let me open a new whiteboard. Okay, great. So uh, okay, under which category, okay, this particular use case comes into picture, right? So this use case comes under a picture of governance. Okay, so we have already seen couple of services for governance. Okay, what are the services which we have seen so far? We have seen about something about cloud trial. Okay, we have seen something about cloud watch. Okay, so in an interview, okay, in an interview, no interviewer is going to ask you that, okay, hey Ram, tell me something about cloud trail, or tell me something about cloud watch. No, only like beginner level interviews, or the candidate who is at the beginner level will be asked with such kind of interviews. Okay, interview questions, just trying to understand whether they at least heard about that service. Okay, the intention is to understand whether they know about the service and the functionality. But for an experienced DevOps engineer, or DevSecOps engineer, platform engineer, the questions will not be straightforward. Okay, most of the time. And also like in this current technology, right, many of us know that, okay, we have a lot of YouTube channels, we have a lot of available documents and everywhere, right, in the internet era. So nobody is going to ask you any direct questions. Okay, rather they try to ask you a use case and expect you to narrate what are the services you are going to use, okay, in order to fulfill the use case. Okay, and again I want to highlight, nobody is going to expect you an 100 percentage output or 100 percentage of service. But whatever the service which you are trying to use for the particular use case, they expect you to explain them clearly to certain extent. Okay, whatever you know, don't mess up the content of one service with the other service and try to do things, right? So in that way you get into a trouble. Okay, okay, leaving those things apart, let's coming to the topic, right? So we discuss about cloud trail. Let me repeat what cloud trail do. Cloud trail is going to capture the events happening in your AWS. So basically what are the events it's going to capture? It's going to capture the event if any resource is getting created, if the users are logged in. So there might be a question might be asked to you. Okay, how do you check like how many users are logged into AWS? Well, the only place you can go and check is that cloud trail events. Okay, so then what is CloudWatch? CloudWatch is something like, okay, it's going to uh, create a matrix of CPU, IO, memory, and everything. And also you can configure the custom logs. Okay, in our earlier sessions I have shown you, okay, how to create a custom metric by installing CloudWatch agent, how to transfer a log file from CloudWatch agent to, sorry, from your EC2 machines to CloudWatch agent for analyzing and everything, right? Okay, great. So keeping the things apart, so today the service which you are going to see is also more or less similar to this. Okay, so that interviewer try to confuse you with that. So that's why I want to explain you this to at least a gist of it, so that you don't get into much confusion. Okay, what service today we are going to see is cloud config. Basically, it's AWS config or config. That's it, not cloud config. Okay. So what is AWS config does in general? Okay. Again, it's going to capture the events happening in AWS. So when I say it's also going to capture the events, the interviewer might ask you about, okay, tell me some differences between cloud trial and cloud config. You get into a trouble. Okay. So you should, that's where like I want to give you the differences, right? So as I mentioned earlier, cloud trail is going to capture all the events related to the service, and also like the user informations, and also cloud config is going to capture the events related to the service, and also additionally it's going to capture and maintain the state of the services. So that's the main important point. Okay, cloud config is going to maintain the state of the services, and also it has ability to understand the state of the services. Okay, so being said this, right? Okay, when you working as a DevOps engineer, okay, and you know that okay, we need to work on infrastructure as a code. Okay, forgive me guys, I haven't covered infrastructure as a code till now in our YouTube channel. But if you guys are really aware about, at least to some extent, you guys can able to capture. So whenever we use any infrastructure as a code, it also maintains a state. Okay, what is a state? It tries to understand what is the current state of a service now, and what has got changed into it. For example, you have a bucket created, you have a S3 bucket created. Okay, for example, you have changed the uh, access policy. Okay, maybe you might have removed the public access. Okay, cloud trail will not capture those internal properties of a service. It just to at the overall it know like okay, someone created, someone deleted. Okay, any modification happens to which property it has been done, those details will be captured only by cloud trail. Sorry, cloud config, which is nothing but AWS config. Okay, so that means that AWS config knows what is the current state, and it also knows what is being changed to it. So that's where in order to capture any user creation, sorry, any services creation or modification, we always depend on AWS config. Okay, I think I made clear to some extent at least. Okay, if you guys have really a doubt, I will cover this particular service in very detail. Okay, because as part of our use case, I am going to use AWS config to certain extent, so where I need to give you the details about it. Okay, great. So and what are the other services which you are going to use today in order to achieve our use case, whatever I have explained? Okay, oh sorry, I did blunder. AWS config, this is the first service which you are going to see today. What is the second service? Okay, we all know, if I want to capture something which is created on AWS and I need to notify to the users or DevOps engineer, I should use some email notification. Okay, how can I do that? It's done through SNS, simple notification service. Okay, which we have already seen in detail, how to create an SNS, how to subscribe to it, and how to publish an email. Okay, everything we have seen, so I'm not going to touch in detail about SNS. Okay, so now I have a config which is going to capture the event. I have a SNS which is going to send an email. But do you guys think there is something missing internally? Okay, AWS config know what is being changed and how it's being changed, and SNS knows whom to send email, everything. But what is our use case? Our use case is to monitor for resource creation. Okay, means that I have a condition. Okay, I am saying to AWS, hey, monitor only for resource creation event, and then send me a notification if something happens in my account. Then there should be some place where you should match the incoming event with your defined event, which is nothing but sorry, service creation or not. So that piece is missing here. So for that we use event bridge. Guys, are you guys understanding? I think. Okay, so AWS config will say what are the events happening in your AWS. Okay, it will give all the events. Okay, and also it will give events about almost every services in AWS. Okay, say it will say, okay, for example, S3 bucket created, S3 bucket deleted, S3 bucket updated with this property and everything. But what do we really interested in? I am interested only on if S3 bucket is created. That's it. I really don't bother about updated, deleted, and other things like that. So for that, you will need to create another event bridge rule. Okay, let's park those things. For this particular use case, I want to know only about creation. So AWS config will give the event. Okay, SNS can send the notification. Where the actual comparison happens in the event bridge. So we need to create a rule which will compare the incoming event to see if it is matching your rule. If it is matching, send the notification. This is what we are going to do. Okay, basically, let me put it in a small diagram. So AWS config is going to send the event. This event bridge guy, right? So event bridge guy is going to process the event, means that it's going to compare what is our expectation and whether it matches. Basically, the incoming event is matching to the creation or not. If it is matching to the creation, then send it to SNS, or else then ignore. So basically, this is SNS. Sorry for my very poor handwriting. I am using the touchpad. Okay. So SNS. So we need to know what is AWS config now. We need to know what is event bridge. We need to know what is SNS. So SNS we have already covered in detail. So we are going to cover about AWS config. We are going to cover about event bridge in this particular session. Okay. So with this understanding, let us jump on to a practical and let me show you how do we do all these things. Okay. Okay. Let's go to our AWS. Let me go cancel my YouTube dashboard. Okay, so let's go to the AWS config. So type config, you will get that AWS config. See what AWS says. AWS config provides a detailed view of the resources associated with your AWS account, including how they are configured, how they are related, and how configuration and the relationship have changed over time. Okay, that is a main piece in AWS config. Hope you guys understand. Okay, so let me give you, right. So AWS config monitor the event and immediately trigger that event to the subsequent services. Okay, so let me go to get started, or maybe let me do one easier step. I will click on one click setup which AWS config gives. Okay, I just do one click setup because I don't want to do much thing in config today. Maybe I will take one more use case which really helps about what other things AWS config can do. Okay, whatever I explained today is pertaining to our use case. There are other few more other things which AWS config can do, which we will see it as a separate section. Maybe the next session I can cover AWS config with that. Okay, so if you see generally it says recording strategy. It means that AWS config is going to record all the event happening in the system when you started using AWS config. Okay, and resource type to record. What are the resource type it can record? It can record all the available resources in AWS. You can see such a huge list. Okay, so then where these recording events are going to be stored, or how does AWS manage those events stored somewhere? It uses internal S3 bucket. So that's the S3 bucket details which automatically creates. Okay, and one more important thing, whenever I say about AWS, okay, any services to talk with any other service. What is really needed in AWS? It needs a role. Okay, for example, in my previous sessions, maybe I think day 4 or day 5, when EC2 wants to talk with S3, we created a S3 role and assign to that ECS, so that EC2, so that EC2 can assume that role and connect to S3 without any issues. So basically in AWS, any service want to communicate internally, they need to have a role. Okay, so this config also create a role which will have a detailed policy for to have permission to access all these resources. Okay, if you guys need detailed information while doing practical, you guys can go and check what are the roles assigned and what is the policy and everything. Probably I can also show now. One second. Maybe after creating I will show you. Okay, so there is something like rules in AWS config. I will tell you that, okay, what are those implicit rules created by AWS in our upcoming sessions, not for today. Okay, because it's an easy one click step. I don't want to confuse you guys with much more thing. Let me confirm it. Okay, it takes a minute to create. Meanwhile, let me duplicate this tab. Okay, nice. Okay, let me go to the IAM. So as I mentioned earlier, I think we have also seen about IAM, how to create a role and how to assign it to any services and everything. So let me go to this role. See, there is some role called AWS Service Config role. If you click on that, it shows the policy for that. If you open this policy, it will have, see, effect allow. It will allow to get analyzer, get archive rule. Every permission will have. If you look at all the services, permissions it will have. Okay, it will be a bigger policy because there are multiple services involved, because it's going to connect with all the services to get their events. Okay, so fine, let's see whether our things are created. Okay, now our AWS config is done. Only one thing which you need to validate, it should be in a recording state, because any events happening in your account going forward is going to record and push it to the S3 bucket. Done. Okay, so our AWS config is going to capture all the events happening in our account. Okay, done. The first step is done. So as I mentioned you, right, so we need an SNS. Okay, let me check SNS, simple notification service. Okay, I have already have one SNS. Okay, and I have also subscribed to it. Okay, there is a topic basically. So for this particular topic I have already subscribed. Okay, basically it just can send the config state change alert. Okay, just for your view I am just showing it. There is no much changes. Okay, for this I have already subscribed because I don't want to take some more time in this, which I have already discussed in detail. Okay, so if you want to check, okay, if I am getting email with this SNS, just publish some sample message. Sample. Okay, dummy text message. Publish. So probably I should reach and get an email immediately. Gmail. Okay, you see, right, sample dummy text message, I got it. So that quick it is. So let it be there. Okay, so my SNS is working. So this piece is also done. So we add a third piece. Okay, let me duplicate this tab. Again, this third piece, whatever I am going to discuss today, is very important, because it needs your 100% attention. If you guys miss anything, you will not understand. Okay, so I am going with Amazon Event Bridge. Okay, so as I mentioned, I am going to create my own rule. Okay, what is my rule? I am going to say to Event Bridge that, okay, in case any creation event happens, okay, notify me through SNS. As simple as that, right? So I am going to select Event Bridge rule. There are few more options available with Event Bridge. We will discuss in upcoming classes whenever we do an use cases for them. Okay, let me create a rule. So give me some rule, like, okay, maybe for today's session I am going to monitor only S3 bucket creation. Let's take an example. Okay, I am going to monitor S3 bucket creation. Okay, monitor S3 bucket creation. Okay, so monitors any new S3 bucket creation and notify to the users subscribed to SNS. Okay, so default event bus. Okay, how it's going to share those events and everything? It's through an event bus. Let's have it default. We don't want to do anything with that. Okay, so how am I going to compare? I am going to compare with an event pattern. Okay, so let's go to the next. So that's the option. See the rule that runs when an event matches defined in the event pattern. So I am going to define my pattern. Okay, you will understand in the next step. I try to explain in detail about that. Okay, so here comes the tricky part. So what are the events you are going to track? Whether AWS events or all the events and everything. So by default, I am going to select all the events for our use case. Okay, but it's going to cost you because it's going to capture every event in happening in the AWS and also the few external events. Okay, so here comes the important part. So till now, I was keep saying about event. Okay, let's take if S3 bucket is getting created. Okay, what will be the event? How the event looks like? Okay, I cannot say to the system that okay in the word, right? Okay, if S3 bucket created, do this. Nothing like that. Okay, if you are doing any programming, you should know what is the incoming request so that you can do a comparison. Okay, you do right. If a equal to 5, it means that a can be 5. If a equal to 5, do this. If a equal to 6, do this. Something like that. So I need to do a comparison. If I need to do a comparison, I need to know how the event looks like. Okay, that's very important. So for that, AWS provides by default few events. Okay, for example, if you go there and select like okay S3 bucket. Okay, see object created. So it has some event. So whenever you get S3 bucket object created, you will get this event message. Okay, but in our case, okay, maybe for testing purpose I can use this event, but in the reality, my use case is to get the event captured by AWS Config service. Okay, so I am going to select configure because AWS config is the one which is going to send me the event. What event happened in your AWS? So that's what we did the configuration and we enabled the recording there. Okay, so I'm going to say config configuration item change. Okay, it can be a creation, deletion, updation. Everything will be captured by this particular config event. So let me select that. So now I have a sample event. Okay, if AWS config finds out anything got changed, it's going to trigger an event with this particular format. Okay, this is going to be that format. Okay, it's applicable for creation, deletion, updation, everything. Okay, so now I want to match. Okay, now I have something like a this complete a where I need to compare. Okay, for that I need to create that particular either it's a 5 or 6 or 7. I need to provide that detail, right? So that's the one which I am going to do in the next step. Okay, it says what schema pair, whether you want to ask schema to compare or whether you are going to create your own custom JSON to compare or is there any other pattern form. Okay, so if it is a schema, it allows you to again create your own JSON format. Okay, but generally I go with custom JSON. Okay, if other than like any if you are monitoring any specific resource, okay, you want to monitor only one EC2 machine in this particular ID in this particular instance ID, then this will be using. Okay, so either for example if you select this, okay, let me explain you with AWS events, your schema like S3 object created. Okay, now you need to enter in which account you are monitoring, in which bucket, name it. it is present, you want to monitor. What is the tag, key, everything you need to give so that it monitor those specific events from for that particular bucket. But in our case, I want to generalize it for all the objects getting created in the AWS. So I am going to write my own custom JSON. Hope you guys understand why I am selecting this. Okay, one second, guys. Okay, so now you have two things. I have a sample event for config and I need to compare some events here. Okay, let me copy the sample event and explain you few things here. Okay, copy the sample event. Okay, let me delete this, paste it here. Okay, so now you guys are going to think on yourself. What are the things I am going to compare? So do I really compare about version of an object? If you guys really worry about what version of objects getting created or updated, you can keep version. But for now, for my use case, I am going to monitor all the resources. So I don't want version to be there. Okay. Do I need to specify any specific ID? Or am I going to monitor anything specific? No. I am going to monitor everything. So I don't want to ID to match. So remove that. Okay. So whenever anything gets changed in AWS, this config is going to send me this particular event. What are the details? It has config, configuration, item change. So whether it's a create or update or delete, it's going to be the same. And from where I am going to get the event, it's going to be from the source of AWS config. I am not going to monitor any individual object based event like from S3 or EC2. I am going to check what is being sent by AWS config. So I need to keep source. Okay, am I bother about a specific account? If I am bothering only for specific account, I can keep that, or else I can even remove it. Okay, for me, like, okay, let me keep that for time being. But in real time, I don't keep account. Okay, is that I am bothered about any resources created only in US East region or any other region? Okay, let me for time being, I will keep the region also and explain you what are the things I am going to do. So, see, for example, it says the resources is going to monitor this particular ID EFS. Okay, am I going to monitor any specific resource? No, I'm going to worry about every resource. So this line I don't want, delete, because I'm not going to, why I'm deleting it, I am not going to use that as part of my comparison. Okay, when I compare, I don't want those things to be compared, so that's the reason. Okay, so again here I don't want recorded version. Okay, guys, I am explaining you however I do it in the real time. Okay, that's why please pay attention. So there are many details in this configuration file which I am not really worried about. For example, this update I am not worried, this create I am not worried. So what are the ways I can capture the event, right? So for example, let's take this one, configuration item differences. So what this does is it's going to capture the difference in the item if it is an update. So do I really worry about update for now? I am not worried about any updates. So I am going to delete this complete block, difference block. Okay. So do you think your notification creation time will be always same so that you can compare and get? No. It depends. Whenever you the activity happens, your notification time changes. So I don't want to keep this part also. Okay, now we are into something like configuration item. Let's see if this block is really needed or not. Okay, let's delete this first two lines. I'm not deleting the block now, I'm deleting this event, empty events. Okay, so under configuration item, there is something like configuration. Okay, what is this configuration? Check. Okay, this configuration, as I mentioned earlier, this sample is for EFS, Elastic File System. So this particular configuration has few things related to EFS. Okay, its file system ID, its performance, Okay, and everything. So let me see where this gets ends. This is very, very important, guys. You need to check with any good JSON editor where the bracket starts and where it ends, or else your matching will not happen properly and you don't get any notification. So this particular piece is completely checking for EFS, which I'm not worried because I'm not even going to monitor EFS. So this is not needed. Okay, so it's an empty one supplementary configuration. I no need. So am I really worried about tags for now? No, I'm not really worried about the tags. So I see if you look at, I am removing the constant values. So if it has any constant value, I am removing. See item version, again I am not worried about item version. Capture time, I really don't worry. Configuration state ID, no. I am not going to monitor for account ID. Let's remove that. Guys, again, one more important thing. How I know those are constant? From the value and from my own experience. Okay. For example, you guys can ask, hey Kumar, like configuration item status is okay, which is a constant. Are you going to remove? No, because configuration item status has multiple values for it. So let me show that in the browser. Okay, let me go here. So if you give that, you get a help document. Let me search for. So whatever the things I have deleted, it will be there in this help document. Okay. So if you look at configuration item status, it says OK. So when it says OK, it means that the resource configuration has been updated. So if you go to my JSON, if I keep OK, if I am going to monitor for updates, then I can keep OK. Okay. So there is something like resource discovered. So what is this resource discovered means to you? The resource was newly discovered means it's newly created or it's newly identified by AWS config. That's the meaning of it. So I am going to add this piece to that. Okay, let me keep also. See, if you want to keep multiple things, there is no harm. So let me keep OK also. If you don't want to, because in future if you want to monitor it for update, you can keep OK, or else you can even remove it. It's up to you, but I will show you how to keep multiple values also. See, for example, if you want to monitor for both update and create, then you keep OK, it will monitor. Okay, for now let it be, and also at the end add a comma. That's why the error is. So resource type. So as I mentioned, right, AWS config is going to monitor for all the resources. Okay, and that's why I am using AWS config event. That's why I did not go for a specific S3 bucket or EC2 specific events. I am going just for AWS config. So if in this case, right, it's only monitoring file system. Okay, for example, if I want to monitor for S3 creation, just for another example, right? So what should I do? I do add one more event, AWS. Okay, it should be caps, right? Okay, AWS colon S3 bucket. So this is going to be the event. Okay. So resource ID again is these two are like hard coded. I don't want to use all any hard codings there. ARN is specific to that bucket. EFS region. I don't want availability zone. This. So I don't want all these three. Okay. So here we are, right? So this is good. So probably if you want, you guys can keep this account and UAssist because it's going to match if the resource created in this particular account in this particular US East region. For example, if you are creating an S3 bucket in US West, it's not going to monitor for you. Okay, for an example, I am saying. Okay, great. So now the event is coming in this way. So the event is coming in this way. So if you are matching the event, AWS recommends, okay, if you want to match the event, all the matches should be within square bracket. So this is the only difference between the event structure and the rule structure. Okay, you are going to enclose everything with a square bracket. So what are the options you want to compare? Put it in a square bracket, is going to compare it for you. Okay, this is the standard and the syntax. Basically, we can call it a syntax. So why are you, maybe if you guys technically think why you guys are enclosing with square bracket, as I mentioned, all this field can monitor multiple values. Okay, so like for example, resource type. If you want to monitor 100 of resources, maybe all the resources, you can enclose in square bracket, which is nothing but assumed as a list. Okay, so the same way, if you want to monitor for multiple region, it's a list, you can comma. If you want to monitor for multiple sources, AWS config and S3 bucket, you can add. So that's why AWS recommends all the validations should be done with only square bracket. So if there is no square bracket, it's going to throw you an error when you match the pattern. Okay, let me copy this. Let me go here, paste it. Okay, now there is a feature called a test pattern. Okay, if I test, it should say successful. Okay, it's a sample event matched. Means that whatever the options I have given, it's all present in this event. Okay, for example, if you right now I have not given version. If I am not given version here, it means that it will take the default as incoming version. So it will compare 0 to 0 only. Okay, if I am specifying only those values, it will check in the incoming event. Guys, these are very important point. How AWS matches the incoming event. So assume that this is the incoming event. You are matching only like 4 to 5 parameters. Remaining all parameters in the event will be taken as same. Okay, whatever is coming, it will be matched with the same. So that's how AWS does. So now you say that your event is matching. Click next. So it says, okay, you said your event is matching. What should I do next? Okay, you need to send it to SNS. Okay, again guys, SNS is an event. Okay, so it's going to send you an email. Okay, for example, if you want to do any other operation, okay, when new bucket is created, if you want to check for any other further things, you can route it to a lambda, and lambda can do that for you. Okay, for in our simplicity of things, I am using SNS. While exploring, you guys can do it with lambda and other stuffs. Okay, so I have an SNS and I have a topic which I have selected. Let me click next. I am not going to add any tags. Next. So this is the overall detail. It says we are going to monitor. These are the things you are going to monitor, and it's going to send it with SNS and everything. Let me create a rule. Great. So my rule is created, and whatever the rule I have mentioned, everything is there. So I think whatever things we have discussed. So I have enabled AWS config for recording. So now AWS config is waiting for any events to happen in my AWS account. Okay. I have created a SNS notification for email. Okay, and also I have created a event bridge to monitor for certain rules. Okay, which is going to monitor only S3 bucket and EFS. Because you guys can ask, hey Kumar, you enabled AWS config earlier. Okay, and you created the event bridge now. That is again an event which is happening in AWS, right? Event bridge creation is another activity which you are doing. So AWS config might record that event also. Okay, but it does not take any action because that doesn't match to our created rule. Okay, great. So let me go now. So how am I going to test? Let me show you my inbox. So I don't have any other than like a dummy email. Let me refresh it once. I don't have any other email. So let me duplicate this. So I have two events, right? Either I can create a EFS or bucket. So let me go to bucket S3. Sorry, S3. Do, 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 do. Create a bucket. Test event hyphen Saathwic. So basically, whenever I create a bucket, okay, it's going to be captured. What happens now, right? When I create a bucket, this particular event is going to be captured by AWS Config. AWS Config will send those events to your event bridge. Event bridge is going to validate this particular event against your rule. If both matches, you are going to receive an email, okay, saying that okay, something happened. Let me check my email box. Okay, let me refresh it. Okay, I am yet to receive the email. Let's wait for some more time. Okay, now my bucket is created and everything is done. Let me check what's happening. See, now I got a new notification, right? So I got a new notification from AWS. Let's see what it says. So AWS has given me some JSON output. Okay, let me copy the JSON. Oh, sorry. Let me go here. So let me delete the sample one. Okay, Control Shift F. Okay, now let's see what are the things which you have given is matching. Okay, this is the incoming event. Okay, let's see. I have asked it to detail type. Detail type should be config configuration item change. So detail type is matching. Source should be AWS config. Matching. Account and region. Account and region is matching. Detail. So I am not worried about much. So in detail we message is matching. Then configuration item. So one of this. So either it should be okay or resource discovered. Then only this particular items will match. So configuration item status. See, configuration item status is resource discovered because it's a new, and resource type is S3 bucket. So only for those particular events I will get an email. Okay. So now you guys can ask me, hey Kumar, now I understand everything, but I am getting an XML. Okay, how am I going to say to my users, or how do I send it to my entire team? Okay, so we can update this email format. Okay, so where do I update this email format? Where is my rule? Not here, here. Okay, I don't know which one I created now. I think not this one. So let me, I think monitor S3 bucket creation. This is the rule, correct? Which has account and region, fine. Okay. So if you go here, there will be like targets. So when I created the configuration SNS, like the target, I might not have selected the advanced option. Okay, I just selected SNS topic and the topic to where the email is to send. There is few additional settings which you can do. So in the additional setting says, what should I do? Configure target input, whether I am going to match the event or I am going to do input transformer or constant JSON. If you want to send only a constant JSON file, you can send. If you want to send a part of the matched event, like only like your region name or anything, that you can use this one. So input transformer is going to help us with that. Okay, there is something like configure input transformer. Okay, it's again ask you what is the event which you are going to send. So here also you can select config, because I am going to depend on the config event. again it's going to be item change event. So whenever any item changes, I am going to get all this XML, whatever the JSON file is printed above. Okay, but I need to configure it in a particular template. So for that, AWS has given some example. Okay, so AWS says in the input path, give something like this, instant and state. Okay, let me copy this for the first one example. So if you come here, the input path is here. Let me paste input path. Okay, so it means it's something like, okay, you assign a value to a variable and use that variable in your email format. So that's what it's all about. Okay, so I am saying I am creating a variable called instance, I am creating a variable called state. Okay, for example, in my case, I want to say, okay, the name of the S3 bucket created in your account is this. Okay, so I will say like name. Okay, I will put like status, not status, maybe in account. Okay, so now I need to find what is the equivalent value for this name and account in your original configuration. So your original configuration is here. So the name of the bucket, if you want to get the name of the bucket, maybe you go to the actual email which you received now. Okay, you will get the name of the bucket. Name is here. So it's coming under configuration item, configuration name. Okay, configuration item, configuration name. So under detail, configuration item, so detail dot configuration item dot name. Okay, this is a pattern. So I think this is what, right? So here starts the configuration item. Inside configuration item, it's configuration dot name. Guys, again, if you are working on this, you should know how to handle your how to pass your JSONs. Okay, I will keep only one for now because I don't want to confuse you guys. Okay, now I have this. This is the input. So in that template, so if you go template, some text has been given, right? So copy this. So I am going to use the same template. So I am going to say that, okay, oh, I deleted that. How it should be double angle brackets. So as much as detail you can add. Okay, so now what happens? This particular name will get substituted in this message and I will get that particular value here, generate output. So now it says like in my sample configuration, I don't have name. Okay, but in my actual configuration, I has the name. Okay, so you nothing to worry about it. You can give confirm. Okay, and next, next, and update. Okay, if I have created everything like correctly, I should get an email. So create bucket, testing Saathwic. I'm not going to change anything. Create bucket. So again, my configuration should monitor and I should get an email. Okay, meanwhile, let me check the JSON also. Configuration item, detail dot. Okay, detail is here. Detail dot configuration item. There is a configuration item. Okay, detail dot configuration item dot configuration dot name. Okay, I should be getting this one. Let me refresh it. Okay, I haven't got the email. Did I got anywhere else? No. Let's wait for a minute. The ideology is that, okay. So basically the ideology is, okay, whenever you configure a rule, you can even configure the template how you want to get the emails to be. So you can add everything like account ID, region, instance ID, everything. Let's see. Yeah. So now I got a message. Let's see how it is. Okay. Okay, looks like it's not working. I should work. Where it is? Asian test event Saathwic. No, this is a very old one. I have created testing Saathwic, right? So this is the one. So does it have any message at least? No. Okay, looks like input transformer is having some issue. Maybe I might be like not configured correctly. Let me check that and maybe update it in our upcoming sessions. Okay, maybe I can even check now. Let's see what's going wrong. Where is the rule? Okay, here something is fishy. View transformer dollar detail dot configuration item configuration name. Let me edit it. So configure input transformer. So event is config. Okay, let me try to match with that particular ID, right? First let me take this account at least dollar dot account. What happened? Okay, let me put like account. Okay, okay, so it should come like this, but detail dot configuration configuration item. Okay, let me check with this. Generate output. Okay, it's a JSON object. Okay, let me at least see if I'm getting that part of the JSON. Confirm. Next. Next. Update rule. Da 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 da. Create bucket. validate Saathwic. So guys, if you are practicing this, okay, ensure once you are done to switch off the recorder, because recorder is going to send all the events to the S3 bucket, and for the data transfer and everything you are going to be charged. Okay, so I'm using the pay as go account and I'm like doing all this activity. You guys don't try this many times. Okay, or else you might be ending up in paying the charges. Because almost like 1 hour we are doing this activity, so for 1 hour they are going to charge you for the recording. And also like all these things will work with like internally with multiple services. So we'll wait for a minute to see if I'm getting the email at least now. Guys, is this interesting? If you have any thoughts or anything like, okay, Kumar, like I know you guys are actively commenting now. Okay, if you guys think that, okay, hey Kumar, like you are moving with very fast or slow and anything, just feel free to comment so that I can update me. In today's comment, one of the subscriber mentioned that, okay, Kumar, one of your video is not at the good quality. Looks like something blurred. So I have checked that. That seems to be like some error in during that time in my system. So I have replied him and apologies. Okay. So let me see if the third notification at least it came correctly, or else I need to do something else. Ta -ta, ta -ta -ta. What is this? Is this for which? No, okay, it's not coming, guys. It's not coming correctly. But I will update you guys. Okay. What I will do is like I will take this as a homework for me, and I will do. To my knowledge, is simple thing, but something I am missing. I don't know like what I am exactly missing there. Okay, so you guys keep practicing. Maybe I will anyhow like I will be covering all these topics in an additional session too. Okay, so when I cover all those topics, I will be able to help you all these things again. Okay, so you don't want to worry about it. So you guys will get everything in detail. Okay, this is going to be just a formatting part. I will just try to see why it's not working. Maybe is there any bug report has been reported or something like that. So it's the same way we need to do. Nothing much. Okay, let me see to that and update you guys. Okay, thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions or anything, just feel free to comment as usual. I am happy to read through and help you out with those details. Thanks for watching. Okay, a small note I want to communicate to everyone. Okay, when you work with AWS config, okay, for example, if you guys work with the AWS S3 bucket, you can just directly have a delete option, okay, which you guys can do. But when you guys work with AWS config, there is no such option. First, you need to go to AWS config. Okay, let me show you from the view dashboard. Go to settings. Okay, first go to edit. You need to first disable the recording. Okay, when you stop disabling the recording, it means that your AWS config is going to stop monitoring for events. Okay, this is very important. Okay, once that is done, okay, go to your cloud shell, because we don't have any direct option to delete your AWS config configurations. Okay, so you should use these two commands: AWS config delete delivery channel. Okay, it's a default which is getting created internally, and you will have a configuration recorder. Okay, so you need to delete this using this CLI. Okay, we are not into the CLI part. but this is the only way to delete the AWS configuration config details. So before you do this, you need to stop your recording. That's more important. Okay. Okay, great. So let me close it out. So if you refresh, you don't see that dashboard or anything. You will have a brand new AWS config in your UI. So nothing will be there. So remaining part are pretty simple. Okay, if you want to delete your SNS, you can delete it from here. If you want to delete your event bridge, you can delete it here. I will delete that and show you as well. So go to event bridge, rules. Okay, select both of them, delete. Okay, guys, every day do the cleanup or else you are going to get charged. Okay, so for example, delete all the buckets. Okay, what is that? Did I miss anything? EVENT. Yes, okay. Okay, guys, so that's what I want to cover. So because like remaining part, I think you guys know like how to delete and everything because it's pretty straightforward. For only for config, you need to use those two commands to delete. Okay, please do clear off all your services before you log off from your account. Okay, guys, or else you will be charged. So just a caution of note. Thanks again for watching my tutorial. In case if you need any assistance, please feel to comment. Okay, thanks for watching.